stuff. But
we'll respond to the dodgy questions as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What's your bank passcode? Just
Right. Thank you.
You are online.
Yeah, you're a bit early, Ivan. So you know, if you want to start asking us questions just before we properly start. By the way, I'm actually going to play the trailer when it gets to about like 6:59. I'll just play the trailer or something, then I can make the proper intro. Favorite IP then. Favorite IP? Well, I don't know. There's been so many good ones. I mean, like from when we were younger, or like something more recent.
I mean, we were just talking about 40K, right? So
yes,
40K is probably one of my favorites. What outside of that, I love their series of games, but it's Monster Hunter. I really like that setting. It's just crazy. So.
Yeah, it's funny. When I think about games from like my childhood, I remember Command and Conquer having a massive influence. I must have spent countless hours in that. And then, like, you know, in my teenage years, I played loads of Counter-Strike.
Yeah. Damn, man.
I know endless Counter-Strike. I can't even tell you. I had, like, you know, custom skins for the guns, all sorts of stuff.
Did you play Source or was it CSGO?
It was Counter-Strike Source, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. But honestly, I used to have all kinds of like custom. Well, I used to like download maps, custom skins, sounds, all sorts of stuff. I was such a nerd for it. Loved it.
Yeah. Even up to now, that IP is quite strong. You know, a lot of people are still playing Counter-Strike.
Yeah, right. I feel like the game's strong. I wouldn't say so much the IP. Like, I don't know much other things about Counter-Strike other than
the game. The game. Right. Yeah, you're right. There's no IP there, no story at all. It's just
it's just like I don't know. Yeah, it's just some military guys versus terrorist guys. That's it.
Yeah. Alex, do you have any IP on your mind?
Oh yeah, for me it's like Machine and Krieger and the here it is, it's called World War Robot by Ashley Wood. He created his own thing, and it's kind of like in the Machine and Krieger setting. So for me, anything like grim, dark, mechanical, spread up. So I would say those would be two, but more generally from games, League of Legends.
To be fair, League's got a pretty good IP. Yeah.
It's a great world building.
Yeah, I don't know how they pull that stuff together. Before, if you looked at like before they did the whole redux of like going through it, it took them years to like get through a lot of it, but until they launched like their website with the new lore and everything in it. But before then, it was just like, I don't know, this guy's a wizard. It's like, and they were just like they had to, I think for a lot of characters they had to like redo entirely who the hell they even were. They're like, this guy, he did this, and then he was here, and they're like, scrap all that. That's not him anymore. He's a completely different person now.
Oh yeah, like the lore people probably have a field day with that, because they created like the random characters back in 2008. They're like, it's just a mage, and now it's like multi-billion-dollar IP, and they need to fit it somehow into the world. It's like,
exactly.
How would you connect all those things, right? You just put random ideas. But then again, you know, money is good, and then hey, you have to create a story with this.
Yeah. It's great. It's a great game. I highly recommend to everybody.
Props to their IP building team, because that thing was not coherent, and they somehow made it a lot more coherent. And then Arcane, that show was so good, so good. It was way better. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it was way better than I thought at any rate it was going to be. You know what I mean? Like I was just going expecting, this is gonna be kind of like fan service or whatever. We're gonna see a few characters and that's it. But I was just like, oh, this is like emotionally impactful. Cool.
Yeah, it's because I feel like League World is, you look at the game and it's like whatever MOBA for kids, but like if you peel the layers, it's pretty dark, depressing. Once you look into Noxus and like some other areas,
Zon as well, yeah.
Zon, it's like Oh wait, it's like it's pretty. I'm pretty sure somewhere inside the Riot HQ deep they have like hyper mature version of all of that where like people get slaughtered and like hanged and stuff like that.
They probably have that in their art even. Like I think
Yeah.
one of the remember I did like a lore dive on them once because I'm a huge nerd for games and lore and everything like that. I'm like, give me the lore. But the I think like what was it like the Noxus army
Noxians,
used they used children against the war in Iona. You're like, oh,
yeah.
So yeah, it got pretty dark. But they kind of like just breeze over that in their like summaries of all of them. But it's only when you like get down to the source of it, you're like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've actually just had another question from Ivan Santic. I wonder if we can just quickly flash it on the screen. But he says, what's your opinion on the evolution of the Doom IP from the original to now? Everyone's talking about John Carmack's interview, but they've not talked much about that topic. I think for me personally, I mean, I think everyone remembers playing Doom when they were like young, right?
Mm.
And you're just walking through these essentially like underground bunkers on whatever planet, blasting these like one-eyed monsters, and I mean, it was absolutely, that stuff still gives you nightmares even now. So I don't know. It's really interesting how that's developed. Yeah. I know the more recent one, last game I can remember released was a few years ago. I think it was 2019, was it? When they released the updated version of that.
They had Doom 2016 was when like they sort of redid the. I think it's technically Doom 4 because they did up to Doom 3 in 2004, and then they were going to work on Doom 4. It was called at the time. I think that was going to be like a really gritty, like serious, like military shooter kind of thing, and it would be like, the American Army, and they would show up. But they ended up scrapping that and ended up making Doom 2016, which was kind of like a reboot for the franchise.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember the director for it though. He was a concept artist. He worked with Guillermo on Pacific Rim and stuff.
Right, so Doom film. I'm going to cheat you. I've got Google on the right hand side, so I'm going to quickly check this stuff. So it's Andrzej Bart. I can't pronounce the guy's name. Sorry, Andre, but I think it's Andrzej Bartkowiak. And so that the release date was 2005. Did quite well, I think.
The Doom movie?
Yeah, I think it did okay.
Was this the one with The Rock?
It was the one with The Rock. Yeah.
The Rock was there, right?
Yeah.
It's not the worst movie. I mean, it's pretty dumb, but it's a fun watch.
Yeah. I think it would have been better if The Rock choke slammed somebody or something, maybe.
Maybe.
If it's done today, it will be a hit because he wasn't that famous back then in 2005. He's not as huge as how he is now.
Not as an actor, no. He was very much still like the wrestler, The Rock.
Yes. Yeah.
There's obviously more problems with that film than just there wasn't enough choke slams in it, but it was pretty watchable. It wasn't anything special though, I don't think. I found out that remember the game director now. Hugo Martin was the director for the 2016 reboot. But it was under him like that they kind of like went back to that kind of like fast-paced classic route for Doom. Because I think with 3 it became like all this like super dark like horror type game, and that was the direction they were heading in. And then with Doom 4 that's what they were going to do and push further into. But then they switched it up to become to harken back to like that classic boomer shooter, or like the way Doom originally was kind of meant to be played, right? Which was that sort of old school, fast paced, collect armor, all this kind of stuff. I think people really liked it. Plus, also the executions were sick, like ripping up demons and stuff. Really leaned into that.
Yeah, I think that'd be really interesting. Do you actually think about that? Turning like games into films. I think actually the one that you did, Fifth Column, like one of the IPs that you shared at GFD North, Below the Salt. I can really imagine that being an interesting like Netflix series or a cool feature film or something.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely the hope. Below the Salt, we're currently having in talks with different studios, but that process takes a long time. So We'll let everyone know when that goes through. Then it's gonna get filmed. So.
Well, I mean, the original intention behind Below the Salt, was it originally intended to be a game or a film? Because I know you showed slides of a book you were putting together to help pitch the project, right? So was it originally intended supposed to be a game then, or?
No, not anything specific. I think it was just it was the project Connor had started, and I think he just wanted to. It was more so just a personal project at the time, but then he got contacted by, and I think he was going to make an art book out of it or whatever, and he could be like, I guess I can just pitch this. I think the intention was that it would be more film or TV rather than game, just given like the narrative for it, or a story-based game if that. So it was always had a narrative link to it in mind, but I think the best way to do it would probably be through a TV show. That's kind of where we're pitching it now.
Yeah. And I think I remember you saying actually during one of the Q&As, or even during your presentation, that you actually did take one of these IPs and go and pitch it in Los Angeles. Is that right?
Yeah, no, that's so the partner for that, Bastian Koch, he headed up the direction on that stuff. So he's currently a director at Netflix. So he was helping us pitch it to them. Unfortunately, it kind of didn't go through, and then we went to different studios. It's currently being processed by another studio. I forget which one. One of Hasbro's like subsidiaries. But you need to get like a lot of people on board first. Was essentially it. Netflix were like, "This is cool. It needs more like concrete stuff," and they give us like a big list of stuff to go do essentially around that. So it's a slow process though.
Yeah, I can imagine. So I don't know if you want to talk too much about that, but in terms of when they're giving you feedback, is it like things that they want to change and add to the actual story, or that things they feel that the IP needs them to make them more engaging with what they assume is good for the audience?
Yeah, I think the main thing that you'll run into, especially if you've got like a sci-fi project or something like that you're pitching for a film or TV show, is the scale of feasibility. Because it's just like, okay, you've got all these really cool designs, and it's like you have like this entire like construction around like this British village and everything. To film that would cost a lot of money, whether it's through special effects or through physical sets, because of how integrated it is into like all the setting. So the art budget for the show would be very high. And so the problem that you'll actually run into more so than anything else is that they'll be like, that's a cool idea, but does this already exist somewhere? Is this like a book that's sold out? Is this a game? Is this have you done previous shows in this or something like that? And if you don't have anything like that, they might view it as too risky to develop themselves. So you either have a pre-existing product, and that's kind of the feedback they'll give you. They'll give you feedback to potentially tame it down and like reduce this like intensity of the setting to make it easier to produce. So if you have like armored soldiers everywhere and all this crazy tech and stuff, I mean, it's really cool visually, but if you need to film it, kind of
it's it's funny you say that. I actually remember there was a guy from VFX. He was talking about doing the special effects of characters. So he was talking about like zombies, and there was like a zombie with like, he did a concept of like a zombie with like a hole blown out its neck, and he's saying it was very expensive to do because you've got to do it all in CG, right? Whereas if you have zombies with like things like coming off of them, like
it's a lot easier.
It's like physical makeup that they have to do, so it's cheaper. So I guess it's similar when you think about the cost, like you said, of the CG armor. But, well, it's interesting that you got to think about all that stuff that goes into the environment. It's a lot like games, I guess, in a way, because there's like tons of thought purely just put into like the gameplay in environments, and how the player navigates through them and all that kind of stuff. So going into that, I know Raymond, your talk actually goes into quite a bit of depth in terms of environments and gameplay and that kind of thing. And I'm just curious, like, so when you're on The Division, how much of your time was just spent kind of going back and forth between, say, the level designers, where you just kind of figure out, okay, well, does this need kind of like more traps, or does it need like more like puzzle areas, or how much stuff needs like working out? Do you work quite closely then with those guys to kind of think about that stuff in your concept?
Yeah, well, similar to what Jack has mentioned, of course, in games we have that feasibility. Can we build that? And it also goes back to like the budget of the area. So, like say in level design, of course, you can make amazing environment pieces. Although in the Division, it's quite different because these are practical sets based on real life, on current things that we have right now. But mostly it's because the head studio there is massive, Ubisoft Massive, the one in Sweden. So me and us in Leamington, and the guys from Ubisoft Reflections Newcastle, we're often having calls with them because sometimes they want really the particulars in a certain level. But there are situations wherein once the deliverables are quite tight, and they would give us leeway. I think the constant decisions that's going to be done would be about the budget of the area. It's mostly like that, because sometimes you're working on pieces wherein it's not going to be the highlight of the game. So of course you have to accommodate efficient space for the other areas as well. So things like that. But overall, the process of environment is it's mostly about working around with level designers as well, game designers. It's a total collaboration. Sometimes I even have like just 1-2 days of just meetings. I'm pretty sure you guys here have this experience. Just a day or two of meetings. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, some of those meetings can get quite intense as well. You're like sat there taking tons of notes and stuff to put into that. But I know you just mentioned at the start, like it's kind of based off like real world like places and things. So were the locations in the Division actually taken from like plans and things of real buildings then that you guys worked into, like actually that already exist? Or
yes, in fact, before I hop on board, I think it's about 2 weeks of just looking at the general art direction, the art Bible, and then we're looking at the actual floor plan of the actual city plan of DC.
cool.
But it's not really one-to-one. You kind of have that entertainment pass because there are buildings kind of like what I've worked on. I forgot the name of how was it in the game. I feel bad because earlier Jack and Alex was talking about games, and I couldn't jump in because I'm not really a gamer. So I forgot the name of the area over there. But it's inspired by the Ronald Reagan Center in the U.S. But then we have to change it because of copyright. So you have to kind of take the essence from what you see and what you can remember of the Ronald Reagan Center and change it into something for the game, just for you to like avoid copyright and all that thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's. That seems to actually, I mean, making sure your work doesn't include like things which are copyrighted. I feel like it's getting more and more important. I mean, there's so much like material out there online now, which you can just like very quickly like just grab and download. You do have to make sure that you've got the copyright before you just jump online and grab those things.
Yeah, it's crazy. Also, like I don't know if you guys have seen it, like especially when the NFT boom came out, right? Everyone's stealing art everywhere.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's really tight. There's quite a few people that have been in the industry for years and years, and I saw them make posts like, oh, my work's been like scraped off my DeviantArt from years ago, right? And people are making NFTs from that. It's crazy. But that's how it goes. It's an interesting time that we live in to think. We've had these pieces of artwork sat online for ages, and I know some people have already had prints of that stuff. But it's interesting that just something being an NFT seems to add like loads of value at the minute. It's just interesting. Whereas before, I feel like would you have sold would you have sold the same amount in physical prints as you would an NFT? Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So it seems to be like some discrepancy between it, but
plus, I cannot help but notice that there's a lot of NFT or blockchain-based game studios right now. It's just amazing how this industry is changing. Like before, right? We're just looking at games, and then later VFX. Right now, hey, we're a blockchain-based game studio. So it's fun.
There's a lot of them around. I can speak to this a little bit. There's a lot of them around at the moment, because there's a huge interest from corporate money, essentially, to invest in these studios, because anything to do with like NFT / crypto gaming has a huge yield for a little risk, relatively speaking, in terms of like user acquisition and stuff like that. Essentially, like if you compare it to like the mobile market has like sort of costs per user acquisition, right, in terms of like advertising, and it's relatively high. I think like 90% of game budgets for mobile games go towards advertising.
Oh damn!
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty large. That could be a generalization, though. I can't verify that exact number, but I remember hearing it being around that number, and it's quite high. And a reason for why some like big, essentially like game publishers, or in a lot of cases these aren't like people who do gaming, it's like corporate interests, so like investment firms and stuff like that funding studios who background was they sold a collection of NFTs, and they're like, oh, we can make a game for this, and then they do tokenomics, which is an entirely different system. It's like fake stocks. So there's a whole depth of world there that I've had partial dealings with through like FizCon, because of we sold some of the Samurai originally as NFTs, and the Web3 side of that business, which is all like that kind of stuff, is interested in that kind of thing. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'm gonna make the game though. But it's something that they're talking about. So it's very complicated, and but potentially you can earn a huge amount of money from it, though. As to how morally correct it is, I don't know.
I actually remember when you guys were releasing those samurai characters for people to buy as NFTs. So part of the selling of those characters, that helped fund you guys' studio, or like help get the seed money towards using the game. I thought so. Though granted, I think like with the samurai collection that we did, the whole idea is that you could do one, great, cool. And the idea was that you'd use the samurai to like interact with the story campaign, which we'll be putting out, I think, later this year, or I think that's the intention, so that you can play like a story campaign that if you've got a samurai, you can help choose. However, there's also an expectation with the Rep3 community and all that kind of stuff, where like, oh, but I'm going to get my money back for this, and you're like, well, maybe. It depends on market speculation. That's what all it is. So it's very flippy and stuff like that. But there's a huge money in if it goes well. Yeah, it's quite interesting. If the game does get more popular, then people could potentially, like you say, sell off the characters to the people if they want them. So it could be an investment for people.
I mean, we were talking about like Counter-Strike earlier, and this market technically already exists. It's just controlled under Steam's marketplace, in the sense that there's skins going in CS:GO for like thousands of dollars, like knife skins and stuff. Are they actually worth as? No, they're not really, because they're sold then on an off-market website, which is technically illegal or whatever. But Steam doesn't have to worry about that, because it's not on their website. So it's like they technically they can ban you for it, but they don't really. But it's led to them earning a bunch of money from it. So like potentially, so like games that sell skins and stuff like that would be very interested in going in that direction. That's why you see a lot of big gaming companies, especially ones that operate like live services, are like, oh, maybe NFTs, and then people are like, no. But it's already exists. It's a different way of doing it, I guess. So
it's funny. It's funny you bring up Steam. I remember, I think it was Team Fortress. People back in the day were going mad for, I think, like buying hats for your characters and stuff, right? So people like buying and selling hats. But so talk quite a bit about IPs there. So just curious, Alex, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, man.
cool. Technology progresses. Gotta stay in I guess in touch. I can't really speak of like NFTs because I don't do them. But I don't do them personally because I just like it's from like business side of point. Like there's two sides for me. Like from business point of view, absolutely. Like if you can go and make a bang, I applaud like 100%. Like go make the bag. But from like the sort of like design art point of view, and like gameplay point of view, I'm not into it because I love games and I love when there is no like monetary incentive to play them.
Yeah.
So there is no gambling. But at the same time, there are people who want that. There is stock market. Like I'm using stock market. Isn't that a gambling either? Like, so it's just like if it's a game, it's got pretty pictures. So if people want to do that, that's absolutely fine. I had some offers to work on some NFT games, and I was like, just like my another problem is the quality is not there because
they're not interested in making a good game. Essentially,
but even the art, like at its heart, the incentive is like we want to make money. There is no incentive. Like for example, The Last of Us, when they were making it, like let's make like the most dramatic story-driven thing, or like The Horizon, or all these games. And if at some point some game comes around, we're like, hey, we're gonna make like a fantastic IP, and it's like well interlinked with the technology, absolutely. But I'm more interested in the like the just personal IP building side of things, and like I'm more interested in like for myself in what like Jack and what's your friend's name? I forgot. Connor. With the Below the Salt, like that whole thing, seeing how that played out, like I was like, okay, I would like to do that. Probably not in the film, or like not turn my stuff into the game, but make something that could be like financially somehow viable in the future. So maybe it's gonna be NFT. I don't know. Like we'll see. For now, I'm still making images. So
there's a strange paradox there, right? Like what Jack and Connor, dude. I haven't seen Below the Salt. Am I correct? Am I pronouncing it correct?
Yeah, Below the Salt.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen it because I wasn't there, but I'm pretty sure it was pretty good because I saw your guys' work in Fifth Column. And I think from what Alex is saying, don't you think the paradox there is because Jack and Connor is really invested in making this one look good, and of course, if it's valuable, the byproduct there will be the money. Whereas I believe from what Alex was saying about these game companies, who's hey, we're gonna make this game, but we need to make money, so the art can take a backseat. We're thinking of what's selling. You know what I mean? Versus the other way around, wherein you're thinking of, hey, Connor, let's do something good that we think is of value, and then we put it out there. I think I don't know. I'm with Alex on that, but I can see both sides of the spectrum on the business side and things. But it's quite hard to make something very well when you're not fully invested in it, right?
No, for sure. I get that.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I just wanted to like quickly say something else.
It's okay.
So like one thing I wanted also to mention is that for me, I like to have like a balance between everything, like like income, what I work on, like the freedom to be working on, because this industry has a lot of money. NFTs or not, there is crazy amount of money, and like once you learn the business side of things, you realize just how much money there is. And there are a lot of ways to make money with like you can set up an outsource studio, like there's myriads of things you can do. But for me personally, I'm like, I just need like a fine balance where it's not too much responsibility, where I can like one of the reasons why I don't think I'll ever set up, for example, like an outsource studio or like work with like or like hire people to do like my work is
because the management, right?
It's not only the management. Like once I'm done with work, I just want to go sleep and not think about somebody else. Like I don't want to be in charge of other people.
Yeah.
And I had a chance to at some point I had a chance to like set up a team with a big company, and we kind of like briefly discussed the budget. It was like super early on, nothing was signed off, and like my brief calculations, I was like, is this stress worth like that extra money? And I was like, probably not. So like I'm looking for the ways to like make it, but like solo, where I'm not responsible for anything, and I don't have like with another thing with NFTs, which to me is always interesting, the people who like sell those collections. And again, nothing's wrong with that, because there's monetary incentive. I just wonder like how people who create those collections feel about it, because when it all first started, I was like, oh, I'll do my collection as well. But then I was like, somebody will buy it if they buy it, right? And then they'll like, I'll kind of be like responsible for them. Do you know what I mean? Like if it doesn't increase in value, they'll come to me and they'll be like, why is it not going up?
Yeah, they will.
So, like,
they will. Like, yeah.
So like that aspect, I just don't want to deal with it. But there are people who absolutely, love it and they thrive in it, and I'm more than happy for them to do it.
Yeah.
I think I'm more a designer, like not artist, but like a designer at heart, and you like good design first, and then everything else will follow.
Yeah. Well, half the problem is as well, I've seen a lot of NFTs where there's been like 1,000, like really like a kind of, well, what I see is like low quality, like pieces of artwork. Like there's one that's really popular called like Crypto Punks. And I don't know, like bash the people.
No, they're like just like tiny like
they're like tiny little pixelated, and like
it's because it's all based off of pure speculation and things called like utility, which just means like ways for them to earn money too, and a lot of this kind of stuff builds into like Ponzi economics, which a lot of them are, which is why NFTs have what's the word, a reputation for being scams, because a lot of them are. So that's another thing, and that's something when doing the samurai stuff, we were like, it's just for a story campaign. You can buy it. People, of course, were like, oh, I'll make money off this because it's like looks cool, and you're like, cool, Then there's a market crash, and they're like, we've had to deal with like people in our Discord going like, when are we going to earn money? And I'm like, maybe never. I don't, like,
it's hard.
It's just this is the market. You know what I mean? Like it's.
Oh, like one more quick. There's actually one NFT thing that I like, and I'm like, okay, this can't be. Sorry,
is it Huxley?
No, it's Maciej Koczara's White Rabbit, because basically it's like, oh, you're not really selling anything to people to speculate. It's like, hey, you support. It's kind of like digital
a
Kickstarter, Patreon. It's like a it's a Kickstarter / Patreon, but through NFTs. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, and it's high quality. Like whatever he does, it's not monetarily driven. It's his vision. I guess like he wants to make his like animes and stuff.
I love that stuff. I think that's great.
So for me, that's like a good example of like maybe something that I would be potentially interested in the future, and not like the other ways it's done. But hey, everybody does their own thing, and it's fine.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's what I want to see more of. But because of the space, it's kind of pushed other people out of that space, so to speak. Yep. So, that's what I would hope for. It'll turn into, but since there's a lot of money there, greed is very apparent, and it's rife. But yeah, I think it's got great potential for stuff like that, and I hope that becomes more common. Stuff like that, but you can also just use Patreon too. It's just another way of raising capital, I guess, or earning money for making stuff you want to do. So yeah.
But Patreon is for boomers. It's for old people. What are you talking about?
This is where the Zoomer cash is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. It's like when NFTs first kicked off. They're like Doge gifts going for like $100-something, so that kind of put me off when it first came out. So I'm just glad there's like you say with Maciej's series, like there's like good quality stuff out there as well, which does look nice. So there's a good range of things out there. That's really cool. So I feel like we've like covered NFTs in quite some depth, and so I'm sure the people who want to talk about some other things. So I'm just trying to think. I know we haven't got any questions in the chat. So just maybe we could go over some of the stuff you guys maybe covered at GFD North. And I know one of the main things that often comes up, or one of the main questions, or should I say, one of the kind of main things that people were asking, and one of the main things that I've been messaged about, is people are trying to get into it, and they want to know what to study, and they want to know how they should build a portfolio. And at the moment, things are changing quite a lot. So you've got things like, okay, Unreal Engine just coming out, and everyone's saying, okay, well, let's learn a bit of Unreal Engine, and then you've got AI coming out, and then there's tons and tons of like ArtStation tutorials, and there's all this information out there. So one of the things I feel that's probably difficult for somebody starting now is, which direction should I go in? Like, where should I start? Like, would it be best to go off to somewhere to get a foundation? Should I just start self-learning? So I guess, I mean, if anyone wants to jump in, so what would, say, your advice be to someone right now who's trying to plan out, okay, I want to get into the industry within the next couple of years. How should I start, and where should I start? Should I go get the traditional kind of 2D education? Should we focus more on 3D? What do you think is going to be most important over the next few years?
I think let's go with Alex, because he's on a roll.
Oh, okay. I actually think it's not that difficult of a question, and I don't know how correct my answer is going to be, but if you ask me, like, okay, you strip away everything like I have, like all my skills and knowledge, or like let's say I can't do art anymore, but I know about the industry and how it works. How would I approach it? Don't go to university. I don't think it's worth the money. I haven't went for the university, but that's what people who went said, or like art centers and all that stuff. And I think the most viable thing is, if you don't know what you want, and if you don't like, because I feel like people who do know what they want to do, they'll find their way naturally. Like, they don't need help. But if you don't know, just look at what other successful people do and copy it. It's like, I'm just paraphrasing Shadi Safari. He did a talk where, like, oh, how do you get good at like making images? Well, they already made, just like look at how they made it and just like
do that,
copy do that. So like, if you want to work on like me, and you want to do hard surface, you can look at what I do. I'm like, okay, he's using 3D, he's not drawing vehicles. Why he's not drawing vehicles? Maybe there is a reason, so find out why, and you can learn that way. If you want to learn characters, well, find who is the best at characters, like character design or character art, figure out what they do. I don't think the future is as scary as people say with like AI and all that stuff, but it's a relatively new industry, and it moves really fast. But just like, if I had to like just like, okay, Alex, just say what to do. Tell me what to do. Learn 3D. Even if you do like, doesn't matter which part. If you want to work in games or movies, just learn 3D, period, and learn it well if possible. And then try to learn Unreal Engine. That's gonna be next thing, 100%. And just develop your own taste, your own thing. That's it. Obviously, fundamentals, I shouldn't even mention that. That goes without saying. Perspective, all that stuff.
It's like you were saying. Actually, probably the hardest part of all this is eventually you'll be hired for your particular kind of design taste, and that takes quite a while to develop, doesn't it? Because you're absorbing all this. You've really got to have seen like a lot of different stuff, and it's not just like watching tons of games and films either. You kind of got to know like history and art styles and all this kind of stuff. So actually, probably the hardest part of your own education is just absorbing as much stuff as you possibly can. And I think that's why when it comes to going to university, you kind of get a little bit of that education. So if you are going to go the self-learning route, I know it sounds counterintuitive, but you might actually want to spend some of your time purely just absorbing as much like history of art, like technology, like how it works books. I remember like during my student days, I used to get those like annuals of like how it works, and you just be filling my head with as much stuff as possible. As many like history of art books as possible. Just as wide a range of things you possibly can. to fill that visual library. Yeah.
YouTube, like that's it. We have the greatest resource on the planet, like YouTube. Just there's any question, like, like, like I still watch countless like documentaries and breakdowns of how like things like the history of like ships or like weapons or like cars, like all that stuff, guns, history of just the world.
It's a great library.
It's like it's a free everything. I believe and I wish somebody would test it. I think within a year, like you take any person, you give them 1 year, and if they 100% focus on just one thing, doesn't matter if it's art or like whatever, through YouTube alone, they can master it within 1 year. If you like put like 24/7 into just doing research and
most people won't do that, of course.
I think if people would start doing that, that would be like OP. Like maybe we would advance to like
would be.
type 1 civilization within like a decade or something.
Yeah, if we're all 100% focused all the time, of course.
Yeah.
I don't mean to hijack, but the one of the points as well that we're talking about is as well, like this is just to get a job in the industry. And I think what Ryan was saying is super applicable in the sense of like researching and all that stuff. This is all really important for design and like knowing design. But a lot of the times when you're hired to work, especially as a junior, they don't need you to be able to be like the best designer. They just need you to be able to draw good. Like they're like, draw this. And it's pretty much that's it most of the time. One of the things is that they'll go, okay, we'll do some research. It's like this plus this. Cool. You combine them. And as long as you're fundamentally good, you'll probably get a job. Like that's honestly the biggest thing with juniors or getting your foot in is just not being bad. It's just being good enough so that people are like, okay, we can hire him and train him in like whatever we're doing in-house or in studio. And when it comes then to design, I think that's something that you practice you should practice on top of your fundamentals as a junior going. And it's what really will push you into those higher roles. Obviously being better and being faster is going to push you up higher as well. But to jump off what Alex was saying as well about like research and stuff like on YouTube, like those are really great resources to get a broad knowledge of things. But when you get really specific into something, let's say you've been hired onto a project and it's like a specific timer or whatever, generally they'll have resources there, especially if they're funding the research into it, right? They'll definitely like look into it. But at least even on like the Rengoku project, when it came to the samurai, like a lot of their designs and like how the armor works and how it's put together is super obtuse and hard to find. In terms of like, okay, this is how the armor connects. And so I bought like several books. One of them being like this is pretty good.
That's cool.
Nice. Yeah, you can look into it and like it's all the different eras of armor. And I love picture books because they're the simplest. This is like sometimes you can get really like analytical, like educational books, but these ones are great because they give you just like that baseline knowledge of like the different armor pieces. So for example, that's a Kamakura era like samurai archer armor. So they have these huge armor plats because that would like take on arrow shots and they normally shoot from the side. So that's where there's so much coverage there. They even had like that like shoulder plate was sometimes called a coward guard. Because they would be like macho and be like, oh, what are you going to use the coward guard when you're shooting your arrows? And they're like, yeah, I don't want to die. But it gets more specific as well because we were designing like a fire clan for the project. And one of the things I was like, okay, well, what does that look like? And we found this piece of info on it. These are like Edo period firefighters. And I was like, whoa, this is nuts. Like I'd never seen something like this before. And so we used that as a basis for the designs for like that clan. And like that's where like the research can help you build off of like that initial research. And like I initially found like books like that online, and then I'm like, cool, I got them now, so that I can deepen that research and deepen the designs where it's a bit more fresh.
I think the other great thing about when you buy the books is that the images in the books often aren't online. You can't actually find those same images. So you can actually, so you can not only get really rare images and resources to use for your work, like you say, you get like, okay, well, sometimes you can't find like a picture of like how the armor actually straps to the arm, right, or whatever. There's no specific thing online that can show you that. So getting those books can help you. In fact, just to show you what I've got right here. So this one is from the Dubai Expo, like 2020. And
Nice.
so this is just like, an entire book on how the Dubai World Expo was built. And it goes into everything from like sketches. So you get like, the classic kind of, double page, nice illustrations, but then there's like pictures of like the stress on the beams. I wonder if I can find it. Just quick flip through. It's completely mad. So for example, like there's a picture of the dome under construction. And so the entire book just goes through of how they built that central dome, and like I say, it's just filled with like a mixture of, there it is. So there's like one, for example, there's like, how much stress the bracket can take on the on the dome support structure. So if you are like, a massive architecture nerd, then getting these books and things goes into depth and all that kind of stuff. So always a good thing to do. So,
I can see that in your portfolio, Ryan, that you're always into this stuff, right? Like architecture. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you the truth. I know that it's not always necessary in games. It's not.
No, that's the thing.
Right, yeah, you know what I mean?
That's why I said fundamentals are probably the more important thing.
Actually, in fact, just to go back to what you're saying when your tunes get into a project, I think if your fundamentals are really solid and you can actually produce something of good quality, I think then the second thing you can do to help yourself is just get familiar with the studio's IP. So really know it inside and out. I know there was another presenter at GFD North, it was Rudy Parfait, and he actually makes a habit of just going out of his way to watch everything to do with Valorant, because he's the art director on that series. So he goes out of his way to play the games, to make sure that he knows those IPs inside and out. So when it comes to designing, say, something for the trailers, when he works on them, he knows what that thing should look like and what would fit that world without having to spend a lot of time, because he is so familiar with the IP before he goes in there. So if you do want to work at a specific place, like making sure you can design within that world, well, it'll only just help you land that job that much faster, I think. Yeah. So there you go. Do you have? By the way, Raymond, I know you actually cover quite a bit on like portfolio building and doing like visual library type stuff. Do you have anything you want to say on top of that?
Yeah. So I'm just going to piggyback what you guys have said. First off, I think from what was mentioned here, fundamentals is out of the question. You should have that. And what I notice is that because right now we have a lot of information, and maybe some of the artists are getting overloaded with a lot of information, and they're not focusing on few things. Like I would say mostly would be in terms of the university. I didn't go to any art school or for foundation in concept art, but I think you can get better first with learning the basics of each programs. Like for example, learn the basics in Blender. Okay, I think that's important, 3D, and then of course drawing in Photoshop, and then understanding values and composition. Once you can draw like a decent image, make sure to look at ArtStation and even just benchmark your work to the junior concept artists in different studios that you would want to work for. And after that, similar to what Jack has shown, when they were building the samurai concepts that they were doing, he did an in-depth research. So, because I think right now everyone is getting overwhelmed. Should I do fan art to get work? Should I do this? Should I do that? Should I create an Assassin's Creed that hasn't been done yet? So it's pretty easy. Just find one topic that you feel would be relevant in a studio that you would want to work on, and then find that research material similar to what Jack did. That samurai, and then focus on that. And I think as you go along, you would fail, hit walls, and that's when you're gonna get better. And once you put out few works out there, you're going to get your reps in. And I think you can see from there, I think maybe I'm missing this or I'm missing that. But then you can ask professionals for their opinions. But most of them are quite busy, I guess. Well, most of us, if someone sends you a message, of course, don't expect to respond within few minutes, because all of us are doing their own thing. But yeah, And also, I'm not sure about yeah, again, universities, not so sure. But well, this is not to to put myself here, but there's a lot of mentorships out there, and I think that will help you eventually. Like say, if you're an aspiring 3D concept designer, you can reach out to Alex and maybe, hey Alex, do you take a mentorship or something like that? Because I think that that's where you would learn. You would learn to someone where you can find kinship with, like if you're quite into these like if you saw like what Jack has presented, like below the salt, if you feel like you would want to get to that level, maybe you can reach out to him or reach out to Ryan for how does he do things. Because I think what's slowing you down to create portfolio would be the walls that you're hitting and you don't know how to solve it. You don't know what's wrong. You don't know the first read. You don't know your values, composition, all these things. So I think that'll be quite good to have. Yeah.
Yeah, and sadly, some of these. I mean, okay, if you break it down, so you got the fundamentals. Well, even before that, before you even sit down at the tablet to start drawing, right? Who are you making the piece for? What kind of piece is it you're making? Is it something to kind of like help describe something to the team? Is it like a blue sky thing to like help design an IP? Like what is the IP when you sit down to draw? Like, are you actually aiming this at a specific studio? You got to really nail it down before you even sit down to do anything, right? And then, like you say, then you start going down. Okay, then after that, you got to make sure your fundamentals are right, and you got your graphic design, almost like the graphic contrast principles of the piece. So your values, your composition, your leading lines, like focal points, making sure there aren't any like tangents in the work. And these are all kind of like very abstract. And there's like there's entire lists of little things that you can keep in mind where a pro can look at it straight away and say, oh well, actually maybe the form language or the shape design is wrong, or maybe you could just like change this here and there to just improve the piece. So yeah, there's a lot of things to keep in mind that a beginner might not catch, where someone more experienced could. Anyway, by the way, I've just looked at the chat, and I know there's another question from Ivan Santic, so I'll just pop it on the screen now. So Ivan asks, who influenced you the most in becoming an artist / designer? So I don't know who wants to take that one first. Yeah.
Can I just quickly jump to the previous one, because like Raymond put me on a spot, but I didn't want to talk about it because like I was like I had mentorship for like a year plus during the pandemic. I did it for free just to learn, and I taught people. I had like a group of 15 or something students, and I don't do it anymore. So please don't email me if I'm not doing it. But what I found works really well is that a lot of people, when they don't know what they want, you just give them your way, they'll take it. And if it works, like there are a couple of students that they don't do what I do, but they just took like my principles and they went with it and it worked for them. For some people it doesn't work, but that's what I found out from like teaching point of view, what worked. So yeah, if you're a student, that definitely works. As for like, and now to jump back onto the like, what's the people like that influence the most? Since I'm talking, for me it was Mike Hill, and specifically just like his approach to intrinsic way of designing things from inside out, and a lot of the designers from back in the day on like the Killzone and the first Destiny game. So like Mike Hill was kind of like, okay, here are the hardcore principles on how to design like realistic spacecraft or something. And a lot of the Destiny designers were like, this is how you do high quality, interesting designs. And I'm lucky to work now with a lot of the original Destiny people. So I can kind of like fuse both of you. So that's for me, like Mike Hill and Destiny 1.
Yeah, it's like the industrial design inspiration.
Yeah.
Sorry, folks. I'm just gonna jump in from what Alex has said. Okay, folks. It's not a literal example, right? That you go email Alex and Jack and Ryan. I'm just saying that if you admire someone, maybe you can reach out to them and ask them if you can learn something from them. It's just something like that. But overall, I think it's nice to just reach out to artists and perhaps learn the techniques that they're doing. It's pretty much that's it. All right. So right. Should I? Okay. Is it okay if I answer this one, because I'm talking anyway? So, all right. All right. Who influenced you the most becoming an artist designer? So, the gateway for my concept art influence would be Feng Zhu and Jamie Jones. So those two. I started. Yeah, man. Well, I'm quite old, so I started 2010, and I saw these guys and their works, and that really influenced me. And then, but for artists, my strongest influence would be comic books. So it'll be Katsuro Otomo, and then Alex Ross. So those two, right?
Shout out to Feng Zhu. He brought us all up.
Oh yeah.
Hey guys, welcome back to FCD design class.
I watched all of his videos back in the day. Like,
I have so many like 8-year-old art pieces or whatever. They're just like these slanted brush scribbles everywhere, and I'm like, I like him now.
And also his tower designs with the letter T shape. You know that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's it. And again, how about you, Jack?
Yeah, for me, I think like to be most relevant to the question, like what got me into becoming an artist / designer, was probably the illustrations by like what's his name? I forget his name all the time. Shit. Sorry, I'm not sure for Chris.
Frazetta?
No, it's not Frazetta. He did a lot of like 40K stuff. So I was huge into 40K.
Adrian Smith.
And Carl Kapinski.
Yeah.
Both of them did a lot of cool stuff. Of course, FCD around like this. That's how I found out what concept art was. And then like Dave Raposa, I think that's when I started really getting into it. Because he had a forum back in the day called Crimson Daggers.
Crimson Daggers, I remember that.
Yes,
yeah.
So there was the Crimson Daggers, and I used to hang out in there. And I still have like friends from back in those days I still talk to now. So that was a huge influence for me at the time. And I think everyone I knew back then has all become artists, which is pretty sick. So we're all Crimson Dagger acolytes. No, but I think then, my taste has changed as I've changed as an artist and developed. But like, I think some of my biggest inspirations like right now probably TB Choi, Art of Maki. They are like more of my like stylization favorites. I love the way that they make characters. They're really cool. And then John Grello and Adrian Wilkins for their character designs in a more realistic space. But both those guys, I just love their like characters. They're so awesome. So yeah.
Yeah, those are really nice. Yeah, I think I know you mentioned like Adrian Smith. I still remember actually copying like a Warhammer book cover, which was painted by him back in high school. So that's probably easily one of the very, very first influences. Just absorbing like all that, like Screaming Orcs with a chainsaw, like when I was like 11.
Or like all the Last Stands.
Yeah. all that stuff is like the very core of like even just as we're starting like art school. So all his works like in my head. Which is funny because obviously I went off of that and started getting into like more unusual stuff as I went into university. So I was getting to like, I don't know if you guys have even heard of this, but like the lowbrow art movement and it's called Lowbrow, like High Fructose magazine, and there were a couple of other magazines as well. But it was a mixture of just like graffiti and illustration. It's got its own unique style. I was really influenced by that, but it wasn't until about halfway through all of that I started getting into like digital art, and obviously that's when I found out Feng Zhu and all the rest of it. But it's interesting that so many of us share similar influences and starts, and it's like you mentioned Crimson Daggers as well. And I think that was started by, is it Dave Raposa?
Yeah, it was Dave Raposa.
Yeah, I remember seeing a lot of his stuff when I first get into digital art, and it's cool because it's like you say, a lot of the guys that you met on that Crimson Daggers forum, are now working or whatever, and it's because they put so much emphasis on studies, right? Like there's just like tons and tons of like studies and stuff on those forums, which is really good. Yeah. The forums like the contentart.org forums and the forums like Crimson Daggers and stuff. That's where you kind of like get most of your knowledge. There's so much stuff that I learned through like a blog post back in the day.
I think it's because back in the day, you have very like say information back then are concentrated in different areas. Like say you're hanging on Crimson Daggers, you practice this way, and then you get better. Whereas right now, like say we have what 100 forums, and you don't know where to start. Like, hey, should I go in this forum? This guy got in. Should I go in there? So maybe that's why a lot of people right now are, moving to a lot of different areas.
There's a lot of discords these days. I think that's the new thing.
Yeah. So I guess even like if I were to start now, I don't know where to find that information. Because back then, you look at FZD, you look at Scott Robertson's YouTube, and pretty much you get the hang of it. And then, all right, I'm gonna study this, study that. But right now, where are you gonna go? There's a lot of information.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's probably the hardest part for somebody starting now. It's because if you go, okay, I'm going to focus more on 2D skills, like the 2D route and learning fundamentals takes ages and ages to get that stuff down, and so I can imagine it is quite difficult for people trying to make that choice right now. But I'd say on the plus side, I think there's probably much more jobs. There's many applications for like digital art or 3D art, and so I think there's just a wider range of jobs out there now than there was before.
True.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So I think we're up to about an hour now. So I'm just curious if we've got any more questions. So I know Ivan's been absolutely amazing this evening. So thank you, Ivan Santic, for all your questions and keeping that the chat busy there.
Thanks, Ivan. For keeping this the energy alive. So
I say keeping the fire burning. But I hope we covered something for everybody in there. I know we spoke a lot about like IP building and NFTs, which are really popular at the minute, and some stuff about if you're getting started. Do you guys have anything else you want to wrap up with, maybe, or anything you think might be interesting?
Is it okay if I ask everyone here some questions? A few questions.
Yeah, go on.
Good.
Yeah.
Right. So this is for everybody here, because every time I get acquainted with some artists, I always have this yearning to ask them, like, how would you define success in this industry as an artist?
You can peacefully sleep at night and wake up with no nightmares and still make a living without worrying about like 6 months in the future. I would say that's pretty good definition of success. Good. And you're kind of like relatively happy with what you do, not 100%, because that's when you stagnate. But you look at your stuff and you don't wanna instantly delete it and start new things. So that would be for me.
I'd say working on a project you like is huge. Like that's such a boon for your mental health. Working on a healthy project or something that you find cool. There's been a lot of projects that I had worked on in the past where I'm like, I think this sucks.
All right,
just disagree with it fundamentally.
Yes.
But also mirroring what Alex said, like financial security is a big part of being an artist. Once you've established a career, it's a very important thing that I suggest every artist looks into. Stop selling yourself short on how much you charge. That's just my biggest thing. It's you should be open-minded and look into constantly changing around jobs and stuff to increase your pay. It's a huge thing. So I would say, doing stuff you like and getting a fair pay is the two major things that I can say. If you can have both, you're on cloud 9. So
you can have what Alex said, peace of mind, sleeping at night.
Yes,
because all of those two things are secured, right?
But also like having it consistently, because you can have a short run, like 3 months success where you have like big money, big project, and then nothing happens for 5 years. So like I think for me, it's only like very, very recently where I was like, okay, I can slowly calm down, like where I think I'm like 3 years plus of freelance, which went full time pretty much every single day. So I was like, okay, maybe I am doing something correctly. Maybe there is something to it, and people want my stuff. So but initially it was always like, oh my god, is it gonna go away? Is it like, yeah. For me, it's like getting rid of that stress, and now that I'm less stressed about it and more confident and secured, like what Jack said about like financial security, so many people just completely don't even think about it. They just want to do images, but again, there's two sides. There's art side and the business side, and I would often prioritize the business side actually, and then like art side. But that's just me.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned that, because there's doing the work that will get you the business and that the business needs isn't always fun. I know.
Not necessarily, no.
Yeah, no, Joe. I mean, it's like, okay. I mean, just to give you like, you know, a stereotypical example, and I know some people might, but not everybody likes doing orthographics, but the modeler needs them. So I know, as you know, for some people, you know, hate doing orthographics, which you know, which is one of those things. But in business, they are needed. So that's just like one example that you might not do those for yourself, like front, back, side, whatever. But that's needed in studio. But then again, as well, going back to charging a fair amount, it goes back to that thing of just making sure your fundamentals are solid, making sure that you're coming up with like, you know, good designs. You've got like a good visual library as well, and then you'll be okay. But I think fundamentally as well, there's many people out there that they want to do this full time, and they're working, you know, they're already working a full-time job or a part-time job, and they want to transition into being a pro. And you know, those early days where you're trying to just get experience and you're just trying to get your foot in the door, you will take on like, you know, those low-paying jobs, or you might just say, okay, I'll do some like free work for a small indie dev team, just to build up that experience. Which is actually what I did. I know that's frowned upon. I know very people are like, no, you should never work for free. But when I was getting started and wanted that experience, I actually just offered my services to a small, like say, a small game dev team that were just making a little game. There wasn't any money involved, and I did that just to get experience of working with a team of people. And then I slowly just built up from there, just doing like little small illustration gigs, mobile games, and build it up from there. And I know there's other people out there that have similar experiences. But on the flip side of that, you know, if your work is super awesome, you know, if you benchmarked it, it matches the you know, the best standard that's out there, you might not have to do that. You might just land that job. But it's going to be all about your you know, like I said, the quality of your portfolio and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, gone a bit of a ramble. I can't remember the original question. What was the original question, Raymond, again?
Like, how would you define being successful in this industry as an artist?
Yeah. Driving a McLaren.
Yeah. That's a very,
having the
very
money
tall,
to drive a McLaren.
That's a tall order.
Making it rain.
I think we're in the wrong industry for that.
Oh no, this is the industry, man. This is the industry.
It can be.
Yeah, I think for me personally, just being in the industry and making a living at it is enough. It's so much. I mean, there's so much worse jobs out there, right? So yeah, I think for those people who aren't in yet, you know, keep sticking at it, and you enjoy it once you're in. There are obviously good and bad jobs within the industry. Sometimes you get something that's really tedious and time consuming. You might not like it, but there you go. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, man.
Cool.
I think those are good answers.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. So thanks again, Ivan. I know you've been an absolute boss on the chat. If we do another one of these, I'm hoping there'll be more people. But there you go. So, but I'm sure there's something in here that everyone will find useful. So thanks again, Raymond Tan, Jack Jones, and Alex Noax for joining us. And I'll see everyone again at some point. And yeah, again. All right. Cheers, everyone.
Awesome.
All
Cheers,
right.
guys.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.